automation. These are guidelines for your future smart home. So an agenda, the first question is, where is my smart house? It's been a long time that it's been talked about it and hyped, and I, as a sales rep in this industry, I've been trying to sell it my entire career through this channel. So where is my smart house? What got us here? Really want to understand the history of it, and then what has really changed systemically, the Internet of Things. So we'll touch on that for sure. Then we'll talk about the hubs, the virtual assistants that are really changing the landscape for us now, and then the opportunities that exist specifically for us here in the electrical industry. So our story, we got quite a few participants on there. For anyone who doesn't know, we are a manufacturer's rep agency, and what we do is we connect global manufacturers to the local market. Why we exist, why we do it, we really have a focus at Catalyst on sustainability and moving technologies that make sense for the shift towards electrification. So every decision we make internally, is based on that sustainable electrification message. So without further ado, where the expletive is my smart house? This is a question I've been asking for a very long time, and we're not talking about Dr. Gregory House, the smart guy from the TV series House. We're talking about the home you live in. Where's all the technology we've been waiting for so long? Why can I buy the lowest end automobile and it has a full host of automation and technology features within that car, but the most expensive purchase I make in my life, which is the home, has no way the comparable amount of technology in the home? So where the expletive is my smart home? So 35 years of promises. This is me at the tender age of 2. And that's how long I've been waiting for smart home technology, because in 1985, this product made its way to the market. This is the Unity System Home Manager. It was a technology company based out of California. And there was over 7,500 of these touchscreen home automated systems installed in the marketplace. And that was in 1985. It had a monochrome green screen. It had, options like temperature. You could select through your floor plans. You could do lighting control, sprinkler system, HVAC, security, general maintenance, technologies we all seem to be in 2020 waiting to have integrated in our home. These were the promises in 1985, and there was technologies in the marketplace to do it. And then there was this dude. This is a fellow by the name of John Romke. Him and Simon Hackett, they were challenged in 1989 at the Interop Network show to connect a toaster to the internet. So this was the first connected smart home device, if you will. And then in 1991, they actually came back to the show and they added on a robotic arm to complete the automation of the process. So not only could you control on, off, and the time function, the toaster would also automatically load. So that was all the way back in 1990. And then probably the most famous smart home technology that we can all relate to is the Clapper from 1996. And I say, forget Amazon Echo as the first audible smart home assistant. The Clapper was really the first audible smart home assistant on the market. And when I was grabbing slides for this presentation, believe it or not, this still has a 4-star rating on Amazon today and is still sold on Amazon today. So that was the lead in and the hype. And then we moved into the .com world. So everyone entered the game in some form, and a lot of the technology companies that started doing home automation in the early 2000s still exist today in some form, definitely on the higher end side, the Crestrons of the world. So 2000 was the .com bubble, and we all of a sudden had this demand-supply equilibrium that happened, and the technologies have been steadily growing out of the .com bubble, but there's just still no single solution for these smart homes. And that takes us where we are today. So 1985 was that first Unity System Home Manager that gained some good penetration. And what does the market look like today? It is less than 5% of equipped homes in the US and Canada are smart homes by the definition of smart homes. So less than 5% of the market. So why are we seeing so many companies in our industry invest so heavily into smart home technologies? Well, for that reason, only 5% of the marketplace has smart home technology in it. There's over 12 million single family homes in Canada alone, which means there's still 95% of that market to go after. And we'll talk about the biggest driver that's already in these 12 million homes for the most part that's going to change what products we sell and the way we do business in this market sector. So the question we all have to ask ourselves, why has the adoption rate been so slow since the early 2000s? And the answer is really a question, because who needs a touchscreen to turn on a light? And I can assure you, as someone who has an iPad mounted on his wall, I never use my smartphone or my touchscreen on my wall to turn on a light, right? It just doesn't make sense intuitively. Yet this is the forward-facing marketing messages behind the smart home techs, right? This is what we've seen forever. We think this is what it is. We go back to 85, that Unity system, it was a touch screen on the wall. So who needs it? Well, apparently 5% of the marketplace must be geeks, because that's about the only people who genuinely want to turn a light switch on with their phone or their touch screen. Or the other side, or buried within that 5%, would also be the 1%, the uber elite, the wealthy, who can afford integration at a level that most of us can't, and they really just want to impress their friends at host parties, or what's going on more so these days, Zoom parties. So connected devices, here's been the inherent problem since the early 80s or mid 80s. Connected devices do not equal value in and of themselves, right? So why haven't connected devices brought value? Simply, connecting a device does not bring value. There is a reason John Romkey's internet toaster never made it to the market. It didn't bring any value. It was easier for me to load that toaster myself and push the button down and wait the minute and a half for that toaster to toast. And that's the reason why it never brought any true value to the consumer. What does bring value is solving problems. There's a theory out there, it's called jobs theory. What job are you, the consumer, hiring your product to do? And there was a Harvard professor who passed away recently, but I always love this story. It was Clayton Christensen. He was hired by McDonald's to do research into milkshakes. McDonald's was trying to sell more milkshakes, which is one of their most profitable categories. And McDonald's had tried every product variation. They had tried every marketing technique known to their sales, and their sales never changed. They couldn't move the needle on that milkshake. So Christensen, applying the jobs theory, stood at the end of drive-through lines, and he asked every single customer who brought a milkshake, what are you hiring this milkshake to do? And he learned two things. One, most people are buying milkshakes before 8 a.m., so they're getting these milkshakes early in the morning. And two, most people are hiring the milkshake as companionship on their long commutes. You look at big city centers and they've got over an hour drive to work. So with this information, they're buying it early. They want the milkshake for companionship on these long drives. They only made 2 changes to the milkshake, which was thinner straws and a thicker milkshake. And it immediately increased sales on the product as well as their profitability on the product. So the same question needs to be asked of smart home technologies, right? What are we hiring these technologies to do to make our lives simpler? And one of the big roadblocks in making our lives simpler is right now that objects don't speak together. It's not easy. So the next battle we've been fighting since the early days is waiting for that universal communication standard, right? These are communication protocols that exist today on the screen here in front of you. Some are proprietary and some are open source. So you look at X10, Z-Wave, Universal Power Line Carrier, Insteon. These are some proprietary standards. And this is just in the home residential space. It's even broader when we get into commercial control systems. And then what else do we have? On the open source, you've got Zigbee, Bluetooth Low Energy, Thread, IFTT, and a whole litany of protocols there. So the issue is we have all the devices we want to connect together in our homes, like lighting, HVAC, security, garage doors, shading, TVs, doorbells, door locks, but no one makes them all, and no one makes them all with the same communication protocol. So there's our barrier right now to get this integrated home we've all been waiting for. And what's been going on since the early 2000s? This is the stock press release kit for every hardware manufacturer that I have represented, that most of us have sold for the last 20 years, right? Who wanted to offer a connected home ecosystem. Essentially, it was enter your product name here, sets a new standard in home automation. All home automation devices will now be able to communicate together, providing they are using your company as a common protocol. So they all tried to do it the same way. They all tried to be the center of that ecosystem. And they would all release the exact same press release and try to do it the same way. And then all of a sudden in the mid 2000s, 2010, 2011, we started getting the software companies involved. And software guys did what they do best in the mid 2000s. And it was Google was one of the first. Google launched Android at home. This was in 2011. Google promised us. They teased us at the integrated framework for all devices. And then at the CES show, this was actually in 2013, a company called QEO. It was a French startup, and they made huge promises. They had a software framework that allows for seamless interoperability between devices and appliances of all brands. So now in the mid 2000s, we really started thinking we were making some headway. And the framework guys are the same way as the hardware guys. They had their stock press release, right? You're a software company, so Google is a software framework made of a core set of modules from what can be developed fully integrated software solutions for consumer devices in order to realize a full interoperability between them. So we had our stock press releases, and we had another 10 years of broken promises. And why did this happen? This is historically why no one was willing to give up control and open up the platform or move to that universal protocol. Why everyone wanted their own protocol or wanted to play with one of the open source protocols, because everybody wants to be the center of the ecosystem, because that's where the big money is. Why? Because in this digital age we're living in, data is the new currency. Tracking consumer habits, tracking consumer information, this is the real value to the manufacturers. Yes, you can generate revenue at our side of the channel on selling the products, but for the manufacturers who make the products these days, they're tech companies more than they're hardware companies. So, and that asks the question, then you ask the question, so why do you think someone like Amazon sells the Echo Dot for $29.99? They're essentially buying from you at that price point a lifetime of data and consumer information. So what does this all mean? Everyone wants to be the center of that ecosystem. Nobody wants to give up the control. So here's a headline that's pretty dated at this point, but a single home automation standard is not going to happen. Z-Wave, Zigbee, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, proprietary, it doesn't matter. It's never going to happen. And what we run into is the chicken and the egg problem. So who was going to crack and what was going to come first, successfully? The eggs being all the peripheral connected devices like the switches, the thermostats, the door locks, or the other one, the chicken itself, which are the hubs that will make all these peripheral devices talk to each other. So we've been waiting for it. It was just a question of what was going to come first. And that's when we enter the Internet of Things revolution. And from the inception in 2009 of this Internet of Things to its current market, which is actually over 50 billion connected devices in 2020. So that's 50 billion things online, from appliances to solar and wind farms. You've got all your street and traffic lighting, the computer systems themselves. You've got wearable fitness products, $1 billion market category. You've got your door locks. It's really, the list is now endless within those 10 years, and it's endlessly growing. So the Internet of Things is what has systemically changed the opportunity for all these peripheral devices to play together. And who really changed it? What's a brand that we would all recognize and give some notoriety to? It's definitely, we got to give credit where credit's due. The Philips Hue product was the first one in our side of the channel and from a general consumer awareness perspective, who said, we're going to do one thing and we're going to do it well. And their smart home philosophy was actually taken from Unix, but they didn't care about the hundreds of other connected devices in your home. They were going to make the best smart lighting product, and that was it. And Philips Hue has become exactly known for it. Now there's a lot of competitors in this market space now, but at the time, they were definitely progressive in this approach to market. But the timing for Philips, something happened just before this product came on the market, which really helped it. And that's the old expression we've all heard by now, and that is there's an app for that. So for the last 10 years, this is what we've seen. There's an app for that. All of a sudden, those companies who wanted to own the ecosystem, to own the data, can do it with their one product. So I don't have to be a company making motorized shading, making HVAC controls, making lighting controls. I can just be really great at my one thing. You know, what am I willing to sacrifice to be great at one thing? And then I can build the product, build the app, and now I can own that data, which is so valuable to me from the traditional centralized ecosystem perspective. I can own that data as a Philips. And that app exists for so many products now, right? It exists for this. This is the August Smart Lock. It's a great product, and there's many competitors to it on the marketplace, but smart locks are one of the biggest product categories. I'm sure most of us at this point have seen Ring video doorbells, which are phenomenal. A lot of great competitors in their market space right now. This is a security company, right? Security systems have been installed forever in residential homes. This is Simply Safe, a fully connected smart home system with its own app. Another extremely popular category, Sonos. So distributed audio, this is a great brand, and there's some great competitors in this space now, including the big tech giants. We can't go very far into this without looking at Nest. Nest, you know, even for us here in the electrical industry, I remember, you know, in this industry talking to people who said, oh, you know, Nest will never work. People aren't going to pay $300 for a thermostat. Well, we were selling old bimetallics, and all of a sudden Google bought Nest for $4 billion. It's now the largest heating company in the world, and it doesn't residential, and it doesn't make heaters. And of course, you can't go far into apps without looking at some of the obscure ones. So this is Flower Powered by Parrot. Okay, you place this in the soil next to your plant, and it diagnoses any issues, helps you monitor your plant's needs for long-term care. You know, and this goes on and on. You can get smart beds that track your sleep. You can get smart toilets, smart toothbrushes, smart hairbrushes. And as a throwback to John Romkey, who developed that 1990 internet toaster, you can now, yes, get a smart toaster on Amazon. Amazon also has a smart microwave. It's their basics microwave that you can use your Echo Dot to control. And there's also a smart fork. So apparently if you eat too fast or you want to change your dietary habits, just get yourself a smart fork. Now, most of these, excuse me, should go in the didn't know existed and should not buy categories. Like this one, who needs a dozen apps for their Christmas tree, right? It's getting a bit obscure at this point. Although when I first saw this, I thought it was pretty cool, and I may end up getting one for my Christmas tree. But the answer to that question has historically been that 5%, right? There is the geek demographic who want all these connected apps. Excuse me, but if we go back to bringing value, what job am I hiring this to do? There's a certain set of product categories and peripherals that make a lot more sense. So what do all these devices have in common? You know, we looked at all these peripherals. There's an app for every one of them. They get to own that consumer data. But what do they now have in common? What has systemically changed, and where does our opportunity lie? Well, for the first time in years, connected objects have started to play well together. And they're doing that by providing APIs for others to play with. So what is an API? It's an application program interface. I'm sure most of us have heard the acronym. It's a buzzword that gets thrown around all technologies these days. But now by providing these APIs, I can still own my products, still own my apps, still own the data, but through the API exchange, I can allow my hardware to talk to other pieces of hardware. And that's what the Internet of Things is really all about. So the Internet was about that sharing of knowledge, where the Internet of Things is about sharing your devices and what they can do. So those 50 billion connected devices, it's about sharing that on the Internet, not just the information that we go research. So now that the eggs are there, and there are a ton of eggs, we just went through a few of them, but there are a ton of eggs there. Then all of a sudden, you know, in the mid to late 2010s, we started seeing these chickens show up, and these chickens are those hubs. So, okay, I've got all these peripheral smart devices, but I've got the APIs, but what's the way that these are going to talk together? And this is what the current landscape of some of the most popular hubs on the market to connect all these devices look like. They allow for what's known as the IFTT programming. If this, then that. So for example, I've got my Google Smart Lock, I've got my I've got my August Smart Lock, I've got my Nest thermostat, I've got my Lutron lighting, I've got my Simply Safe security system, and I can start writing through these hubs those automation protocols that used to be reserved for the complex integrated systems. And I could have something like, you know, if I unlock my door, then turn on my lights, disable my alarm, and play my music. So these hubs allow, through those APIs, for me to integrate all these peripheral components together. If these hubs that allow the home automation at the larger scale that we've all been waiting for the past 35 years. So you look at this in the top right here. Let me just bring up my laser pointer. So in the top right here, you'll see the Smart Things hub. This is probably one of the earliest on the market, still widely utilized today. But Smart Things works with Zigbee, it works with C-Wave, and what seems to be the most important protocol is IP. So anything that's on your home network, be it wireless or wired. You also have the Wink. This is actually the Wink 2 hub. The Wink 2 takes it even a step further. The Wink 2 has Bluetooth Low Energy. It's got Kitty. It's got Lutron Clear Connect, Wi-Fi, IP, Z-Wave, Zigbee, and it's even got a Thread-capable radio, which is Thread is being touted now as that next standard that you may see broadly implemented. And then you've got the Hubitat Elevate Your Environment hub, and that's got a very similar protocol set to the Wink, and this is really for those DIY enthusiasts. It's very open source, and what you can do with it from a programming standpoint is pretty incredible, especially at the price point that it's at. So all of a sudden with the, oh, excuse me, my slides don't want to advance. So all of a sudden we've got the eggs, the chickens show up, and what does this mean? It means this home automation market is no longer reserved just for the 0.01%, right? Those luxury, we talked about the 5% of geeks, and then I mentioned earlier at the start, there was also a demographic of the ultra wealthy who could afford some of the traditional control systems. So the Crestrons, the Vantage, the Control 4, the Savant, you know, hardware on these systems costing tens of thousands of dollars just to purchase, and programming on them, you know, could be upwards or if not the same. So some of these control systems we've seen deployed in the marketplace over the years, you can spend up to $1 million by the things actually working, and that's if it actually works. So it's no longer just reserved for that 0.01%. And then what really happened, you know, the eggs, the chickens, the peripherals, the smart hubs, what really happened that has changed this marketplace were just two words. And those two words were, hey, Alexa. Now, some people would argue it's not two words, it's actually 4 words. We can't forget Google, hey, Google. And to a very lesser extent, I guess we could argue it's 6 words, hey, Siri. So this is what the market today of the home assistants looks like, and what the home assistant allows us to do. It's voice interaction, it's music playback, it's real-time information, and it's a hub for all of those same smart devices, and all of this for the low price, on sale most of the time for around $29 to $39. And this market has grown so fast, and the opportunities that lie for us in the electrical industry that come out of this are incredible. But essentially, this is the market today. You've got Amazon with their Alexa product, you've got Google with their Assistant, you've got Microsoft Cortana, you've got Apple Siri built into their HomePod smart speaker as well as their Apple TVs, and you've got Samsung with Bixby. So everyone is playing in this market now. And if we could only get 5% market penetration on those traditional smart home opportunities or those traditional smart home systems, what does the market penetration look like in these virtual assistants, these AI assistants? Well, in the US, and we could carry these percentages over to Canada, but in the US, there's 157 million homes with some smart assistant deployed within them. Alexa as a product on its own was the single largest selling product on the entire Amazon website on Black Friday in 2019. And I think actually it was the largest single SKU sold on all of Black Friday in the US. So these things are being deployed everywhere, and they're being deployed broadly. And besides Alexa telling you a story, if you really want to get the most out of these smart home assistants, you've got to connect them to the peripherals. So what does it all mean? It means that these techs are no longer just for the geek. It's no longer just for the 5%. So what does our opportunity in this industry look like? Well, the math is pretty straightforward. If you switch 1% of your business, you will double your gross profit. So if I take the ivory toggle switch, and for every 100 I sell, if I can just sell one smart home switch, I'll have doubled my gross profit. And you know that there's a market for it already, because we just looked at the slide that shows us there's 157 million homes in the US, and there's 12 million available homes in Canada for these smart home devices, the hubs and the smart home assistants. So they've got the tech, now they need the peripherals to support it. So it's a very small percentage of your market share that you have to convert over to smart home, and you will double your gross profit. And the great news is the product's already on your shelf, right? You've already got inventory there for most of us, whether it's Hubble, whether it's Leviton, Legrand, Cooper, Lutron, Honeywell, Philips, Dow's. You get into the thermostat companies like Oulet and Dimplex, Stelpro. They've all got products on your shelf right now, I guarantee you, that work with these. Works with the Google Assistant, works with Alexa, works with the Apple HomeKit, works with IFTT. And that's the beauty of the APIs we talked about earlier. As long as the product you're selling to the contractor or homeowner over your shelf works with one of these, it's ready to integrate. And the other good news for our industry is there's been a lot of market research done on this, and homeowners still prefer to have all of these products, lighting and heating controls, installed by professional electricians. The only question is whether we educate our marketplace and the electricians are buying this product through us, or if those homeowners source the products third party, online, wherever, and then provide them to the electrician to install. So the hubs and the virtual assistants are on the market. They need the peripherals to support them. The nice thing too is once you see these logos on your boxes, electrician takes them off the shelf, installs them in a home. For the homeowner, it's as simple as adding the skill within Google or Alexa or Wink or SmartThings. So it's a very simple process now to integrate all these technologies into the smart home. So that's it for the where we're at, where we're going, and the why. Some frequently asked questions. With all the protocols, which one should my new smart switch work with? Well, if you're looking just in adoption, the Samsung SmartThing hub is the most widely deployed hub, and the Alexa product has the largest skill set available for it and also has the broadest market penetration. Outside of that, Wi-Fi is pretty common these days. The hub-based systems are good. They're a little less burdensome on your Wi-Fi network, ones that connect back to a central hub like Lutron or like Philips. Unfortunately, that's a single failure point, and sometimes the technology is proprietary, so it might be a little harder to integrate. What is the average cost of a smart switch? You could go to Home Depot right now, and I guarantee Leviton would be there, and GE probably, Lutron. You're going to pay around $65. That's the MSRP. So there's great margin to be made on these products, well over 30 points compared to what you would typically make on a toggle or Decora switch. What's the difference between a hub and a virtual assistant? This is a really good question, because I talked about the hubs, which are your Winks, which are your SmartThings, and then the virtual assistants are your Alexa and Googles. They're both hubs in the sense they aggregate all of these different peripherals into one place and allow them to interact. The difference is Google and Alexa only really do it with voice commands. So in my own house, when I say, Alexa, good night, she turns off my TV, turns the main floor lights off, locks the doors, and closes the blinds. That if this, then that statement occurs with my voice, whereas the Winks and the SmartThings hubs, they occur through scripts. So I can say, when I unlock my door, then do all of these things. So you can have events trigger other events within the smart hubs, but they also work together well together. You could have a Wink and a Alexa, or you could have a SmartThings and Alexa on the same system. And the last question here is that a young Eli in the geek photos? And the answer is yes. His mom sent me that photo. That's him playing on the Commodore 64. So the manufacturers that we do represent in this space: Dow's, Brown-Newton, GLLS, GM Lighting, and Legrand. And I thank everyone for their time.